What's up guys, Gordon Briley here, and today we're going to assemble our new phenoX Evo ID rack. So the first thing we're going to go over is what tools that you'll need. So whether you're watching this for actual assembly, you just got your product, or if you're looking to see how easy it is to assemble, this video is literally going to take you step by step. We're going to give you all the measurements so you guys can have the exact same setup as I have and not have to wonder if you got to set it up correctly. So we're just going to walk you through. That's the way I like learning and understanding things, is actually visually seeing it. So I hope you guys like this too. So the first tool that you're going to need is a tape measure, because we're going to make lots of reference points to make sure that we're getting things just where they should. So a tape measure. The next thing that I have is two 3/4 inch wrenches. So I have one that's ratcheting, that makes life really easy and quick, and this is just a standard one. You can use like an impact. I like to get things kind of done quickly with the impact, but not tighten them, and I'll hand tighten them so I don't over tighten. But an impact also is going to set your lag bolts. So however you guys decide to set up your actual top boards or lower boards, that's up to you. So you'll need specific tools for however you're going to connect, because we're not actually allowed to provide different bolts to actually secure the wood to your wall. So that's something that you have to come up with. As far as this is how I did it, nice long lag screws, lots of them to secure it to the wall itself. So I do not provide those because I can't, again, or else I would. But everything else to connect any part of the system to the wall, I provide all of those. So just think about that, what you're going to need to secure this to the wall. I prefer lag screws, nice and long. I think I use 3 to 4 inch lag screws to attach this actual board into the studs. So that's something you can think about. Lowe's has the black ones, lag screws. Depending on the size, should be T30, but they should also come with a driver, a bit, so you won't have to do that if you buy it. And I like most of my stuff to match. So with the black, I know that they usually have those at Lowe's. So just a regular driver. I have electric or cordless, but if you have electric, whatever, it doesn't matter. As long as it can fit this T30 bit into it, because you're going to need this quite a bit. Beyond that, that's really the basic tools that you're going to need, besides a saw or whatever it is that you're going to do, whether a chop saw or hand saw to cut your actual 2x6. But in general, this is almost all put together with very, very, very basic tools, and it's very simple. It's just having these measurements that's going to really simplify it. So we're going to start from the very beginning, and we're going to walk you through, like I said, all the different pieces, all the different measurements, everything that you'll need to assemble this properly and to speed up the process, and you don't have to really think about it. So the very first piece that we're going to need is, it's a 3-sided rail. It's 43 1/4 inches long. It has holes on 3 sides, and it's the only piece that'll be in it that's like this. So this is the very first piece that we're going to want to get. Now the goal is, everyone's situation is going to be a little bit different, so you may have to shift things slightly, but all I can do is, because there is so many different situations that can happen, is give you kind of the basics, and using what I'm going off of is 16-inch centers, because that's what my walls are. Some of you, if you're in a garage, may have 16-inch centers. Some of you may have 2-foot centers. So you're just going to have to base your decisions off of what you actually have, following this general idea, because all the measurements are still going to be the same, but what length this board that you connect to may be slightly different. So just know that in your situation, you may have to modify things, but not really the measurement of this stuff, unless you have something that happens to be in the way. So maybe some slight modifications, but this should get you to where you need to be. So again, this very first piece, 3 holes on 3 sides, open rail on the other. what we want to do is this is going to be our center portion. So in the room that you have, the space that you have, you want to try to make sure that you are centered and then connect it into something very solid, so a stud. That's definitely how I would do it. If you cannot do it that way, what you're going to want to do is put something like a plywood, I would say minimum 3/4 inches, and cross a couple of studs, or at least 2 studs, to have a solid surface for you to connect this to, because this is going to have different types of torque forces and stuff like that. So we really need to make sure this is secure. So having it centered on a stud is really going to help with your measurements too, and making sure that you're hitting your studs in other places. So if you get this secured into your first stud, or you at least get it marked, it's going to come with some latch screws. This is the latch screw that I provide. The bit I will also provide. This is a 3/8 inch washer. So these are going to go right through here. So you'll find a bunch of these. And these, you're actually going to use 4 of them. 1, 2, evenly space them out, 3 and 4, one at the bottom, to secure this to those studs. So these are 2-inch. And these are going to secure this to the wall nice and tight, really tightening down. And then once we have this piece on here into the stud, or whatever your centering portion is, we're going to take some measurements using this piece. So what we want to do is get a line from dead center into this, straight up. So we're going to use this as a reference point. So it's also going to be in that stud that continues up this wall. So we want to make a mark. The first mark is going to be for where the bottom of this next rail is going to be. So we're going to start getting this piece ready. So from the ground, it's 54 1/4 inch. So you would make a mark at 54 1/4. That is going to be the bottom side of this rail. And then you'll also have a mark center. So you'll make a little cross at 54 1/4. And then the line that goes up through here, so you'll cross there. Then what we're going to use is pulling off of this line here. You're going to measure 26 1/2. 26 1/2, and make a mark here, going up and down. You're then going to take that same measurement as earlier, 54 1/4, and put a mark here. So those 2 marks is going to be this outside edge and this bottom edge. So that's going to get you right in the distance that you're going to need for this rack to be nice and level. So 54 1/4, 26 1/2. So off that same center mark, now what we're going to do, it's going to be slightly offset because this side is adjustable and has longer fittings. So it's going to be slightly offset, doesn't matter. This is actually going to be, you mark, same way, 27 1/2 and 54 1/4. So that's that bottom side again. So you have 3 marks to make sure this is the same distance off your floor. 54 1/4, 54 1/4, 54 1/4, 27 1/2 will be the end of this. But once you put this rail up here and set it to this line, it's going to end at that line anyways, but it's a good reference point. And this piece, this is a rail, same rail as this, except it doesn't have the open ends, and it's about 54 inches long. So it's going to be the longest rail of all. And this is what we're going to mount to this wall using those measurements. So what you're going to do is take those same exact latch screws with the 3/8 washer. Put the nice side of the washer out always on all of these so it looks good. Put your latch screw through. If you have someone to help hold this stuff, it's obviously going to be a lot easier, but you're going to secure this using those reference lines that you made. So on this end, there's going to be 5 different latch screws that are provided for this piece. Obviously, you're going to want to do it in the center, here in the stud, and then find your other studs. That's where you want them. So in different situations, in my situation, I actually use 3/4 plywood. So I actually do not have to actually have a board like this. Let's say if you have drywall or you have nothing, you have bare exposed walls. So what's going to happen is, if you have that situation where you have exposed walls where the studs are showing, or if you have drywall, you're going to be able to connect to where the studs are here, but these ends may not hit a stud. So what I would do, if that's your situation, is to get a 12-foot 2x6, and you're going to use this here, and you would do the exact same thing here. So using those measurements, this is 5.5 inches thick. What you would do is, just like this one is secured to the wall, you would also secure one right here. So it would be one here, and now you have a solid surface to mount to on this end into the stud. And if you don't have a stud there, it doesn't matter if you have this 2x6 just to actually secure into, as long as these are hard mounted to any studs that you come across. So the length of this is going to be specific to your situation, but ideally, let's say it's 2x16-inch on center for your studs. So that's going to be, to cross these different studs, it's going to be 64 inches to hit, I think it's 5 different studs. So ideally, I would make this piece, cut this 66 inches long, if you have 16-inch centers, and then secure to 1 stud, 2 stud, 3 stud, 4 stud, 5 studs. That's going to be absolutely ideal, because it's going to be secured on every single portion of this. This is going to be definitely the strongest way to do it. And then you would just duplicate it down here. It'd be the same exact thing. If you buy a 2x6 by 12, and you do 66 inches to cross those 5 studs, then it's going to be plenty of lumber to actually get 66 and another one at 66. You're actually going to have a little bit of scrap. So you'll just have to buy one single board to secure both here and here. But if you put a board here, because you have the situation I was talking about, you're still going to use this measurement, the 54.25, as where this goes. So this 2x, just like this one is, it's going to be centered right here. So make sure that when you mount this 2x6, that you have it centered here and here, so this rail is in the center of that 2x6. But back to, if you have that 2x6 in there, now you can mount, just evenly space them, or try to hit the studs where you can, because that's going to be ideal, is go through this into the studs. But these ones are only going to get into it a little bit. So again, everyone's situation is going to be slightly different, but it doesn't really change where these mount. So once we have this piece hard mounted, we're going to be able to pull the next measurements and actually get this piece set up. And that is if you purchase the upper portion, because it's going to be sold as a lower portion for people that just want a nice easy rack. Maybe they just want to do belt squats and all the crazy things that you can do with this, but already have a rack. This is just kind of an alternate rack that they use to do some of the cool movements. They don't necessarily want this portion of it. So if that's the case for you, then we're going to skip this upper portion, the measurements, and then come back when we're actually ready to mount the arms onto this. But for now, we're going to keep going because we need to get measurements for this. So I'm going to actually pull from the floor and give you all the different measurements that you'll need to get this mounted perfect alongside of this one, because this is going to be the next step. So I'm going to give you from the floor to the bottom side here of this 2x6. And that measurement is exactly from the floor to the bottom is 6 foot. So you can make a mark at 6 foot, 6 foot, 6 foot, and then we can secure, we'll know where to secure the 2x6. And then make sure this is really secured well. You can see that I put lots of two of them in every single stud. Boom, boom. And if you have that 66, so I only did, because I have the plywood backing, a nice thick backing, I think I only did, I did 5 foot, so I got mine out of a 2x10 instead of a 2x12, slightly cheaper. But, and I didn't have enough room here, but because I can mount to the actual plywood, then it wasn't a big deal. But ideally, you're going to go to that next stud. So 66 inches will cover here and all the way to here. That way you can mount even better than this situation. What you're going to want to do is find the center, whatever length that you choose, to make it to cross the 5 studs or whatever your situation is. If you're slightly even past that, what you want to do is find the center of the board that you just cut to hang up here, this 2x6. Find the center of it, and then mark that. We're going to continue this line up this stud, and put the center of this board, this overall board, right at that line. And secure it using that measurement here, here, and here. It's at 73.5 to make sure that everything's from the floor lining up perfectly. So this space will be the same, this space will be the same, this place will be the same, and same goes for from the floor to here. So go ahead, and then you can mount this 2x6, and maybe you already mounted this one to get this rail done, so you have 2 of them. Or if you're in my situation where you don't need it, a little bit easier. But I love this situation. Even if you have 2x4, you can still, even if you have the plywood like I do, you can still put this 2x6 here to really, really make it beefy. Just kind of up to you. So the next thing that you'll do is actually mount using whatever it is that you choose. Make sure that you mount this really well. This is probably, especially if you're going to be doing any of this stuff where you're putting pressure pull-ups off of it, you're going to really want this mounted. So nice long lag bolts, long enough to go through the 2x6, which is 1.5 inches thick, into whatever surface you have, whether it be drywall, plywood, whatever it might be. So you're going to want nice 4-inch long, 4.5, whatever, as long as you don't pass through that wall. But make sure that these are secured in every spot that you can to something solid like a stud. So you'll mount this board, and then we'll leave it at that. We're going to move to something different. We're actually going to start mounting the arms. So if you're someone that didn't buy this portion, no big deal. We're going to move on to the next step. Okay, so now we're actually going to get to mounting the first arm onto the rail that you just installed. So what you're going to want to do, and you have to, don't mind my pieces because I've used them a million different times. So mine are a little beat up. Yours will be brand spanking new. But these pieces, one side, the hole to the edge of it from the edge of the hole is much smaller. That's a side that's going to have to secure by the wall so it can go up and down. The other side has a longer distance from the edge of the hole up, that's the side that will be outwards. So you have to mount this one pretty specifically in that way. There's plastic caps that come with this. There's going to be a bunch of them, but one goes in the end here, one goes in the end here, and you're going to want to put these on before, because once you get it mounted, you're not going to be able to get your hand back there. Actually, you probably could if you lowered it down and then pop it in, but go ahead and put them in now in both arms. And this arm and this arm are going to be slightly different because of the way they mount. This one is able to slide. That way, if you want to make your rack smaller, it has a different setup. So we're going to go over this one first. So now that we have our piece here, it's the smallest one that is the four-sided with holes on all sides. There's two of them exactly the same. So what we're going to have to do is start getting used to some of the pieces that we assemble a lot of our products with. These are actually kind of fun. I love these. So these are rail nuts, and they have a curved edge, and that's the way that you can rotate it when you put it in the rail, and then they can slide back and forth. So that's what we're going to do. This end out, I already have two in here, but you just put them in here, slide them in, and rotate it into place. Super, super simple. Now they're able to move, so you can make adjustments using those. The next thing you're going to need, there's only a couple different size bolts, so this should be really simple. This is a 1-inch bolt. This is 1/2 inch in diameter with a 3/4 head. A 1/2 inch washer, so there's only two size washers, 3/8 and 1/2 inch. This is the bigger of the two. We're going to use this to connect the fittings. So the fittings for this specific arm, again, the other ones are slightly different. It's going to be a 90-degree with two holes. So what we're going to have to locate, it's hard to see probably on this one, but there's a black surface that's a UHMW tape. This has to be in a specific place. So when you mount this UHMW tape, this arm is actually just slightly longer than this arm. This has to be facing outwards, so that UHMW tape is going to be facing on this side of it. So when the arm goes in here, it's going to be rubbing against that nice smooth tape that doesn't break down. So again, locate that UHMW. It blends in real nice. And then you're going to put it just like so. So that tape's on this inside. And then you're going to put the 1-inch bolt with the 1/2 inch washer through the hole, and you'll just spin it in here. And then it'll hold itself in place. You're going to be able to move these wherever you want. So when it's time to adjust, now we find the other fitting, exactly the same. It's a single arm, 90-degree, two holes. Find that UHMW tape that's on the back side. That's going to be on the opposite side with this surface here having the UHMW tape. So that's really important. Put that in there. And then, now this side of the surface is taped, this side is taped. We're going to find now a 3-inch bolt. It's a little bit longer. 1/2 inch washer, the nice surface facing outward. So now that we have our 3-inch bolt, we're going to grab our arm, and this is where you have to look for something a little bit specific. So this cap that's in here, this plastic cap, if you look through one hole, you're going to see part of that plastic cap. But if you spin it and look through the other side, that has been removed to allow this bolt to slide through. So if that's in the way and you're trying to put it through here, it's never going to go through because you're hitting the side that has the plastic still intact. So you have to just look inside of that hole and see that there is nothing in the way. And that's that hole that has it removed where it can slide through, it's going to have to go through this way. The other thing you're going to want to do, because this is kind of a tight fit, is slide your washer to the very front of the bolt. So the washer, you put it right up there. You don't want to have the washer way back here and try to put it on because it's going to hit the head of this right here. So just keep it near the end. Have the side that's cut away. Put the washer up there, slide it through into the other side, pop it through. So this can just hang here now. You're going to place another washer, kind of angle it in there, get it on. And then we also have nylon lock nuts. So these are going to go on the outside here. Just going to get this on. And this is where you'll need those 3/4 inch wrenches. And these are not always going to be able to fit onto the bolt itself, the hex head. So you're going to need that open exposed end so you can slip in here, and that would be this case right here. So what we're going to do is need to pull another measurement. And these are going to be able to, you can really easily adjust them later. Because when we're going to mount this piece up here, you're going to use this arm folding it up to actually set these pieces. But for now, what we want to try to do is get these, first off, we want to get this tightened down to where we're going to have it. That'll be done. And then we're going to move this to where we need it. And then we can tighten it down, not over tighten it because it might get adjusted slightly later. So the first one we're going to do is this one here. So I'm just going to tighten the arm down. These ones are still loose, so they can pull in as this gets tight. So the goal with this arm is we're going to get it tightened to a certain amount to where this will actually hold itself up. So we don't want to over tighten it and mess up that tape that's in the inside. So we're just kind of doing a little bit and getting it figured out. Just get it just as tight as it needs to be, to where you can put it up here and it'll stay, or stay for at least a couple seconds. So when you're going to put the insert on, right there. So I don't want to over tighten it any more than I have to. You can always adjust this at a later time too. If it loosens up a little bit, no big deal. Just tighten these down just slightly. They should stay though. So this is now adjusted using this bolt, the cross bolt. Now what we want to do is find the measurement to where this needs to be located within this rail. And where did I put my tape? All we need to do is off this end here, this very far end of this rail, we just want to do a 1/2 inch to the edge of this fitting. The end of the fitting here is a 1/2 inch. So the gap from the end to the edge is a 1/2 inch. You can still slide it at this point. If it's not sliding, then you just need to tighten it up a little bit. So I have it at a 1/2 inch. Now what I'm going to do is start to tighten these down. Really, really simple. I'm not going to really tighten them down yet, because you'll see later it may not be perfectly plumb to where this comes up and meets this. So we want to look at this and try to see, are these nice and flush at the top? Is this, when you go up, is it going straight up? It's not leaning. Hopefully I'm not in the way. It's not leaning to one side or the other. So you want it to go up nice and straight. So that looks pretty good. Again, we're going to be able to adjust this stuff within seconds. So I'm just getting it pretty tight. I'm not cranking it on it at all. It doesn't need to be. And now from there, we're going to be able to set the next arm. So we're going to do that measurement next and get these pieces put into the rail as well. All right, so the next piece that we're going to assemble is the next arm over from the one that we just put on. This has a different fitting, but it all goes together in the same exact way. So that small edge is going to be on the inside. The longer edge from that edge of that hole upwards is going to be facing outwards. Again, same thing. You're going to pass that 3-inch bolt with a washer through this. You have to look for that plastic piece on the inside, this insert, and make sure that you just spin this the right direction to pass that bolt through. Piece of cake. This has a longer fitting, so you're going to do the same exact thing. You're going to get this tightened up if you don't have it up here yet, which we don't in this circumstance, just get it kind of in there, slightly tight, and then we're going to put it up here. We can tighten it once you get it up here. But you're going to find 2 more of these. You're going to place it in there this way, just like you did before. Pop it and spin it in the direction that that groove is. That cut out of that metal. The next piece is the quick knobs. I take a 1/2 inch washer, the bigger of the 2, place it on there, nice side facing out. You're going to pass it through the outside hole of this arm and its fittings, and you're just going to find the 1 rail nut. Okay, just kind of get it tight. You're going to move this wherever you put it, slide it so you can see, so it's lined up with that hole. That way when you put this threaded knob through here, they actually have little pieces that guide them right to the position that they need on these rail nuts. You can see these little tabs. They actually, if you push it, it actually stops it on the edge of the fitting to where that hole is directly lined up. So again, knob, washer on it, feed it in. Tighten it up. Not real hard, because we're going to be moving this with our measurement, so just get it up there. And then this is where you could secure this down to, again, where it just stays up there, just barely. You want it to be easy to move, but it will hold itself. So tighten that one up just slightly. And then we're going to start getting the measurements that we need to get this just right for the rack and the crossbar to fit in there perfectly. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull off of this one that you already mounted a 1/2 inch away. We're going to pull some measurements off to get this one lined up. So from this edge, the inside edge where that UHMW tape is, let me make sure that you guys can see that edge. Okay. So the inside of this inside fitting here, I'm literally going to hook this to it, bring it over, and what I want to do, the same inside, so it'll be the inside edge of this as it meets the fitting, we want it at 43 1/4. So we're going to slide it at 43 1/4 to the very inside, right where it meets this edge. Just going to tighten her down for now. Again, nothing crazy, might have to change it still. Make slight adjustments, but what you're going to want to do, the second measurement that you're going to check, is you want these holes, the center of this hole and the center of this hole should be 45 inches. So if you have someone hold it or you put it right in the center and you measure over to the other one, it should be 45 inches dead center to the hole. 43 1/4 to this inside edge of this to this inside edge should result in 45 inches center to center in the hole. With this system, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. There's a lot of forgiveness in this, but if you can get these really close, things are just going to go together a lot easier when you have these nice accurate measurements. So this one's nailed. It was that simple. So we have this piece all ready to go. Both arms are on and mounted the right way. And then we're just going to move on to the next piece, and that's actually starting to fasten the upper portion. So again, if you don't have this upper portion, you're going to skip ahead when we start moving to the next portion of assembly. So now we're going to play a little pretend like these rails are not here, and we're going to actually be mounting those. So I'm going to give you the measurements for those. You already have your 2x6 installed, and this measurement, the very first one, to the bottom, we have 6 foot here, to the bottom of this, and that's where we're going to want to put a mark, is 73 1/2 inches. So you're going to do 73 a mark, 73 a mark, 73 a mark here, and make sure that we have it's going to make sure that this is level to the floor by having those marks, not just one mark and try to eye it. Make sure that you're level all the way across using that same measurement. You're going to do the same thing over here. You're going to have these rails, which are just like this rail, but much shorter. There's 2 of them that are just alike, and these are the ones that are going to be up here. So same thing, 73 1/2, 73 1/2, 73 1/2. Same thing all the way across. That way we have equal distance from here to here, here to here, from the floor to here, whatever it may be. So the next thing you're going to want to do is actually get these in place so that you have lots of room, because this rail is actually offset more because of the width of the fitting. This has a single fitting on this end, 1 hole, the one above has 2 holes, so this actually has to be offset some. This portion of the rail isn't really important. It's going to, you're going to be able to hang accessories if you want off of this portion. So what we want to do is just make sure that we have plenty of room with it shifted over this way. So making sure, if you put this up here, we want to make sure that we have a minimum, I would do 6 inches to the edge of this rail. So set this edge, minimum 6 inches over, and then use those lines, the 73 1/2, and secure this end first. That way you got this distance here, and it's going to be able to fit that top fitting, no problem. So 73 1/2, 73 1/2, secure this end, secure the middle. There'll be 3 screws per each one. So secure this one into the 2x6 with the 2-inch latch screws that you used earlier, same ones as with this. You're going to duplicate that exact same thing over here. Put this up. We're going to shift these in a second. So put this up, measure 6 inches over, minimum. You can do farther than that if you want. It certainly wouldn't hurt to shift it all this way if you have extra plywood or 2x6. Move it this way a little bit more, but it's going to be just fine where it's at. So mount this one now, get it nice and tight, secure these really good, and then we're actually going to start assembling the fittings. And this part's really simple because we've already put these here. We can make some adjustments to these. So that's how I'm going to go back to this side, and you flip this up, and this is where your first rail nut. So the same exact ones, they're 1/2-inch rail nuts. You're going to need 5 of them per side. So you literally just pop them in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're all going to be lined up right in a row. So this goes up. That's going to be this fitting here. There's going to be 2 of these fittings. So this actually wraps around the rail. The first bolt is going to pass through into the rail nut. And that's what I just put this one up here. I centered this first rail nut right on that. I'm going to place that right up there to where it's going to go. I'm going to put a mark here, dead center, a mark here, dead center. This doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but you might as well push this up here and mark it with this. If you have a level, you can plumb this and make sure that it's straight up and down. If you're into, making things that accurate, that's awesome. And then you would look to see that this is level on both sides, and then make your marks. Boom, center, boom, center. It should be flush. If this is in the center, it should be flush, perfect on the top and the bottom. It's 5.5 inches, just like the board. And then once you have those marks, you're going to take it back off and drill a pilot hole. I did 3/8, and I do supply the lag bolts. So that's what you're going to be mounting on these top ones. This is really going to make the system super strong, is this piece right here. So getting this mounted nice and strong is really important. So drilling a pilot hole, you do not want these to split. And with lag bolts, it's more likely to split. With lag screws, they don't normally split the lumber unless it's on the very, very edge. So that's why I love lag screws. But these lag bolts fit these holes nice. So that's a better option for this. So drill your pilot holes. The 3/8 is great. It's not going to split. Punch those through, and then you're going to grab the 1-inch that we used earlier for the other fittings. 1-inch bolt, 1/2 inch diameter, 1-inch, 1/2 inch washer, slide it on. And you're just going to, in that center one, so that's what it's going to look like. Through that center, in that center one that we just measured with this piece, you can move it later, no big deal. We're going to get that tightened down, just hand tighten. Your hole should already be drilled. Now we can install the lag screws. So I do lag screw. This lag screw is a short one. The ones that provided will be 3 inches long. This is one that I used, that I had. But put it in there, get it nice and tight. Do the other side. Get that nice and tight. Now you can tighten that one down. Now the next thing that we're going to look for is a fitting that has 2 holes and 2 holes. There should be 4 of these ones. I think this is the only place that they're located, so this will be when you need these 4-hole ones. Same bolts as we use throughout, 1-inch, 1/2 inch washer. What we need to look for is, again, there's a protectant tape. It's UHMW tape that is on the inside portion of this fitting. So again, just like before, this arm is actually just slightly longer than this arm. So we want this to actually be on the inside. So when we mount this one, just like we did the other fitting down here, these are exactly the same. You're going to get your rail nut. They should already be in there, 5 of them. Now we're going to go to the 2 outside on the right. And put that one in there. On the other side, same scenario. UHMW protectant tape is on the inside. So the bolts go here with the washers. And that UHMW tape is on the inside here. Okay. So now we have the fittings, both of them up here. What we can do first is actually move them so that they're centered pretty close to the middle of this piece here. So with mine, it's slightly different because I didn't do it exactly like this. I should have, but I didn't. So it's slightly off. If you're not sure that this is straight up and down, you can loosen these and move them just slightly to the left or right to get it to fit within there. But now we're going to have to actually grab one of our uprights that already come fully assembled, because what we want to do is we want to secure this at a distance that fits this steel, the width of this, because this is wider than this piece here, but this is what's actually going to go in here. So we want this nice and tight, but not too tight. And I get that in there and I can secure it, secure one side, and then make sure the other side is nice and tight. And this is where you'll decide and maybe make adjustments to it to how easy or how difficult you want this to sit within this fitting, because you can just loosen them up, slide them in or out. Just make your adjustments based on how easy or how tight you want this to slide into it. So once you get this portion, which will be lined up with this portion because you already did that, then we're just going to tighten these down. So I'll need my wrenches, my 3/4 inch wrenches. And what I like to do is make sure they look nice and flush. They're not twisted at all, that it's nice and flush. And then I'll start to tighten by holding them. I'm kind of pushing down on this backside so they don't move at all. If they do, no big deal, you can readjust them. But I'll kind of move back and forth. Don't want to really crank yet. So I'm getting them that much decently tight. Again, depending on how I want this to be in there, I can give it a nice squeeze. And then again, I like to jump back and forth between the two, not just really tighten the one because it might want to twist a little bit. And just kind of work back and forth, making sure that they don't twist at all. And just get these tightened down. And if you don't get perfect the first time, no big deal. Test it out once you're ready to go. And now it comes in and out. That goes in there nice and smooth on that tape. Again, you get to decide how challenging or how easy, how secure it is when putting this in there. So now that one is mounted. Now we're going to move to the other side. Same thing. It's literally the exact same thing. You're going to mount this center one first. Here. Mount the two fittings using, you'll have all 5 of these rail nuts. Put this one in, put this one in, UHMW tape on the inside, UHMW tape on the inside. Secure it just like you did over there. And this portion will be done. We can move on to the next. Okay, so now we're going to get to assembling the actual line, the landline portion of this. So what we're going to need is 2 fittings. This is a 2-1, so it has two holes on one side, 1 hole on the other side. There's 2 of them. And these are actually going to assemble with the bolt through the holes in this portion of the landline. So I'm going to just go like this with the bolt that comes with it. 1/2-inch washer, like we've used lots of times. You're going to pass it through the single tab portion. So we're going to pass it through here. We're going to put this. What you're going to want to do is make sure this portion is down. So the barbell landmine portion of it. This, with the hex head, is going to go through this side. Okay, so we're just going to grab the other one, facing the same direction. Washer, 1/2-inch washer, and the 1/2-inch bolt. Nut, nylon threaded nut. So now that we have that on, we would just want to now tighten this down. And this is where I like my ratcheting socket, a wrench. So I'm just going to get it a little bit tight. These should be able to flow nice and easy, but there shouldn't be any slop in them. Okay? So now we got that installed, really, really simple. Now what we need is more of the rail nuts that we've now gotten used to. Same thing, 1/2 inch. And put it in, one in, a little bit higher, they may slide, no big deal. Put the other one in. There's going to be 2 more quick knobs with the 1/2 inch washers here. And what we're going to do is just assemble right through the top and bottom hole. So I'm feeding it through the very bottom hole of this fitting. Nothing will go in that one directly above. Get it in. I can just flip it right to the side so I can see well. Piece of cake. Now, I'm going to get this other one. Just make sure that rail nut is close to that hole so it'll thread in nice. So again, the barrel for the barbell is down low. This portion is up high. And now that's literally all there is to assembling this portion. And so now you can loosen these and you're going to be able to slide it to wherever you want. And then you'll lock these down. There will be a safety pin that will pass through this upper bolt. This knob, quick knob, will extend into the rail, and then a pin for safety will pass underneath it. So you'll move it when you move this to a hole that's directly below this knob in the threads. So for any reason you didn't tighten enough and it wants to move, then it will just move down to that closest pin. So you're always going to want to put that with it. The pin I do not have because that's currently what I'm waiting on. So anytime you want to move it, always make sure that you finish. I always keep it just off the ground so I can get to this knob. I never lay it all the way to the ground and just tighten back down. They'll hold a lot of weight this way. But if you're getting to the point that they want to bypass the ability of these rail nuts, then you can just rely on that pin. Let it sit right on the pin, no big deal. You'll never be able to break that pin. So this is now installed. The next piece will actually be, this one is 43 1/4 inches long, plastic caps. So we're gonna have a lot of plastic caps that are going, should be one in this end, one in this end. This will just pass through. You can just put it inside. And then you will have a bolt, 2 3/4 inches long, and then a 1/2 inch, knob, so you can quickly adjust this, and it telescopes. There will be more videos showing how this functions. This is just a setup video, but this will either be this or it'll be a pin. So whatever comes, if it's not this, then it'll be a pin that passes through here. So this can adjust anywhere in or out. So that's the setup of the landmine portion. Next, we're going to move on to the crossbar assembly. Okay, so now we're going to assemble our crossbar. What we're going to need is what we call the cube. The 3-hole fitting, there's 2 bolts. Well, there's actually going to be 4 bolts. So I'm just showing the one side because the other side is exactly the same. So for this one side, there will be 2 bolts, 4 1/2-inch washers, 2 already on here, a 2-hole fitting, and then 2 nylon block nuts. And what we're going to do is we're going to find this. It matters which way this goes on. So currently I already have the one side installed. So the 3-hole fitting is out here. The 2-hole is on this side. How we install this piece matters. So we're going to take that cube. I'm holding it with the 3-hole fitting on the outside, the 2 on the inside. I just want to make sure it can't be upside down, so that doesn't matter. It just needs to go on this way. So we don't want to mount it this way. We want to mount it this way. And it can go this way or this way, but with it facing flat this way as I'm holding it up, it should be flush to the top. So that's on there. You're going to have to put that. You can put one of these sides of the fittings on first, but make sure you put this on before you do this other side because it has to go on over top. You're going to grab the 3-hole fitting, place the bolt with the washer into, doesn't matter which way, and then you're going to place those in the 2 outside, making sure that it's going to be the same as this fitting. It's matching on this end. You don't accidentally put it up here or here. Next, you're going to take the 2-hole fitting and place it on the back side, opposite side of this fitting. Put the washers. And then put the nuts. Tighten them up as much as you can. So 3-hole, bolt through, 2-hole, washer, nut. So I like to make sure that when I tighten these, I'm actually going to use this. I want to just try to make sure that it's pretty flush, nice and flat. It's not twisted because there is a little bit of play in this until you tighten it. So I'll just make sure they're nice. I'll hold them. Get that first one tightened down. Looks great. Go to the second one. Or I could have just simply tightened them by hand. Make sure they're tight. Now, there will also be an eye bolt. It may not look exactly like this one, but it's going to function the same. This one has a 1/2-inch washer that I passed onto it. You don't have to have that on there, but I like it. That's going to pass into this last hole. And there is also a quick knob for the back side. That passes on here. You don't necessarily have to have this on right now because this is going to be off when you actually put the crossbar on. So now we have fittings on both sides. This is in here, so I'm going to give you one last look at it. Sometimes you're going to use this with this up or down depending on what you're doing. So that's the crossbar. So at this point your Evo ID system is essentially installed and we can start to play with how it works. There's going to be lots of videos on how to actually set it up more specifically. This is just, again, the installation videos. And there's a couple things that I kind of want to let you know about that you could do to help make this a little easier. One is right on this very edge of this arm, you could put a little mark. So it always goes, if you move this a lot, you always put it back in that same location. But just as easy is really just raising it up. If you move this, which getting used to these, how much you have to loosen it. And if you just lift a little bit and slide, you'll see it slides really easily. So if you have moved this, how do you know where to get it back to? Well, that's simple. You just get it up here, get it right in the dead center of that. So it's going to end up right back in that same location. Make sure there's the same gap on both sides. Tighten her down. and then it's back into that same location. You don't really have to worry. It's mindless in that way. So the next thing is just kind of going through, checking when these will come installed, the uprights. They have the ability to move. This is always going to be, for the most part, on the inside, so facing the wall. So now we can kind of check all the different measurements. This is one way that I hook it up. That fits really good, nice and tight fit, but not so hard to get in. If I'm going to set it up like a squat, I'm actually going to flip it this way. I'm just going to pin it in here through that very top hole. Make sure the pin passes through. There'll be different pins most likely. So that's what I'm waiting on still when I made this video. Now this side, it's going to go down and then down. And pin it there. And we got that one. And you can do the same thing on the other side. This, we're going to raise this up. It should stay. If not, you can just tighten it down. This telescope's right inside this. So how you move this around when you slide it, if you actually just kind of lift a little bit in the center portion, right where it's telescoping inside, it slides really, really easy. So you just kind of pick up a little bit and pull it. If you're just pulling on it, sometimes it might kind of catch a little bit. But if you're lifting and pulling, kind of lift on this bottom piece of this arm, it glides so smooth. So here, I'm going to pin in. It's all the way in to that first hole. Okay, nice and good. So I'm actually going to take that pin out. I'm going to raise this up. Push it all the way back. Pin it up there. And then depending on your ceiling height, you can raise this right up out of the way too. So we'll have pins with a locking arm that goes all the way around. So that one's up there, but that fits nice. Again, we're just checking all the different fittings, making sure everything kind of moves the way it needs to. Do these stay? Don't over tighten. We went over that. Does it go up? Does it hit it all? Like mine goes straight through. If anything's out of whack, don't worry about it. You can just simply adjust. Take those. If it's this part, just loosen these up. Make adjustments. They can go up and down, in or out. Same with these. Anything can be adjusted in just seconds so you can get it just perfect. And then the last thing I'm going to show is actually installing the crossbar. Because like I said, most of this is going to be in how to use rather than how to install. Now the crossbar can be set at any height, depending on what hole you want. You just simply plug it in. Pick the same hole on the opposite side, usually very easy to tell. There is some slight movement to move it in or out. So as long as you're on that same hole, it's going to go in nice and easy. And then you would install quick knobs to secure on both sides. Here, and a lot of times what I'll do, if I need to lower down just one hole, I'll take it out, I'll just shift it, move it that one hole, I'll shift it down that one hole, and then move over to this side, and then shift it down one hole. You're not going to be able to do it more than one hole, because it'll start to bind. But if you just missed the height that you want by just say one hole, really simple to just move it really quickly. And then that should be it. As far as everything else, the one thing that I wanted to make sure is you're going to have a bunch of plastic caps. this end, this end, this end, this end, this end, this end. Both ends of these should have plastic caps. These arms should have plastic caps. How that one goes in, this end